my name is Maria. I have been with RBA for almost 7 years now. I've been working with SharePoint since 2007 and then Microsoft 365 as it moved into the cloud. I've always been a business analyst for the majority of that time with a focus on all the collaborative tools. And then obviously prior to COVID, I was a customer immersion experience facilitator. So I'm really excited to be here. I absolutely love sharing these apps and what they can do for our clients. Adam, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Adam Hickey, a user experience designer at RBA. Been there for over 10 years and been working with SharePoint and Power Apps over that time, getting a lot of experience with that. So looking forward to sharing some tips and tricks with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. So an overview of what we are going to talk about today. So I think a lot of us kind of go through this feeling of our intranet needing a major facelift. And so Microsoft 365 has some really cool updates that can help you create a much more modern and engaging experience. So we're going to explore the latest improvements and design tips that can bring your intranet into 2025. I'm going to talk a little bit about RBA. So we are a digital and technology consulting firm. We're based in Wayzata, Minnesota, and we focus on bringing together strategy, design, and technology expertise to help our clients. So we utilize a variety of technologies. We engage on a project-based level as well as co-delivery and staffing. And in a few cases, we also do some managed services. But our real focus, we just want to make sure that we are helping our clients to obviously meet their business goals in whatever way, shape, or form that is. Our team has a full spectrum of IT roles, from business analysts like myself to developers, engineers, and designers like Adam. And we also have dedicated digital strategists. So these is just a view of some of the technologies that we have worked with, as well as some key numbers highlighting our footprint. So since today's focus is on SharePoint and Power Apps, we wanted to highlight our dedication to helping our clients with their collaboration, communication, and productivity needs. Time is so precious, and so we love partnering with our clients to find solutions that help the employee engagement as well as any process efficiencies. So today, we are going to start. Adam is going to share his tips for designing in SharePoint and Power Apps, and then I'll share the latest tools in SharePoint to help you take advantage of those tips.
All righty. So at RBA, we use user-centered design. So we do a number of different user research activities, and this has led to uncovering a lot of these insights that I'll be sharing with you. So we've done, we typically do design questionnaires at the beginning of a project. Then we move into user interviews, usability testing. We also want to get a strong understanding of the user's needs, goals, and motivations and pain points. So we work with personas and also map that out over time through them working with the app or program. Thank you. So our first tip here is avoid large images that never change. So I've seen this a lot in different sites that I've worked on where, they want to bring some visual appeal to the site, but, it remains kind of stagnant. And so this area should really be reserved for content that's changing frequently. So like promotions or events, things you really want to just put out for a little while. Because otherwise, people just tend to gloss over this after a while, and it takes up some really valuable real estate. Next slide, please. And also, you want to make sure that you provide, quick access to tools and resources at the beginning of the page. So this is where, users will come back time and time again to access these links. Such as benefits or expenses. So you really want to make sure that they're in a consistent spot every time they come back, really easy to find. So thank you. Next. Here's a situation where, we do have a lot of content-heavy sites where people are searching for something in particular. And it's good to give them a couple options on how to find that content. So one pattern that I've used time and time again was, providing more of a browsing experience with graphics and icons, and also in addition to a search experience. So that gives them, you kind of account for both user types in that situation, and they work really well together. Next slide, please. All right, so avoid over-designing. So I think this is especially relevant today as SharePoint, you're able to, doing more and more custom graphics. A few years ago it was pretty locked down on your capabilities, but now, you can put in different background images, different colors, fonts, but really just want to, exercise some restraint and, really focus on the message that you're trying to convey rather than just making it visually appealing or interesting. Next slide. So this has to do with accessibility and being mindful of particularly the color contrasts. So, we want to aim for, typically we aim for AA contrast ratios, which means that normal text has a 4.5 to 1 contrast ratio and large text has 3 to 1. And one thing in particular that I've run into was, I'd find a good link or primary color that passes, but then when I place it on, like a light gray background, you'll notice that it doesn't pass. So you really want to make sure that your primary color works on all backgrounds and passes accessibility. This next one's about in-app user surveys. So we've been applying that. I've been doing this a lot with my client lately and getting a lot of helpful feedback from people internally. And so this is a great metric if you don't have anything to begin with and you just want to establish a baseline. So I'd recommend the Net Promoter Score. And that just gives you, an idea of how many people enjoy the product and would recommend it to, their colleagues or friends. And a couple of the questions that we've asked that I found really helpful was, what are the primary reasons for the score that you gave? So there we get some really tangible feedback, actionable items we can, focus on. And then also, would it be okay to follow up with your responses? So this is another great one because a lot of times we don't have a contact loop with the users using these products. So that really opens it up. And then you can establish kind of like your power users or people who are willing to give you feedback for continual conversation. So next we have embrace consistency across screens. So this is just one example I've done in a Power App where the first screen here, we're just filling out basic event information and the type of test that they're doing. But then on the second screen and all the screens after this through this process that you're working in, we have this header that remains consistent. So the user can always see, what event they're on, what location, and then where they are in the process. So that's a really good way to structure the app. Next is, customized pre-designed templates and components. So Power Apps has a number of, components that you can use and reuse, skin with your brand colors, everything. And so, we've created collections of these controls that we're able to reuse throughout Power Apps, which have been really helpful. And then this next one has to do with responsive design. So, typically you say desktop and phone, but I did want to point out some nuances with tablet where, you're really using the desktop layout, but you want to ensure that the UI elements are touch friendly. So you can see in the desktop, the height of UI element, like a button, would be 30 pixels typically, just to so it doesn't take up a ton of space on your screen. But we do want to make those bigger on tablet to make sure it's easily accessible. And then finally, be sure to design all states of UI elements so developers have a clear vision on what to build out. And so this is just an example how we take, our primary button, we show an alternative color to that. We show it on a different background colors. We show a couple options for additional colors for, special reasons, special actions. We're showing both sizing for desktop and mobile, as well as giving some more flexibility to the user with solid and outline. So this could be kind of a nice baseline as you're designing out your design system for SharePoint or Power App. All right, so here's just a summary of everything I went over. These practices help create, more intuitive, accessible, and efficient experiences. Any questions on any of those? I know that was really high level content.
I don't know if there were any questions that came through in the chat, but we'll have a couple other opportunities for questions as we go through. So I'll keep going. Thank you, Adam.
All right, thank you.
All right, so let's talk about some of the tools that have been released in Microsoft 365 for building some better intranets. Site branding. So some of you may have seen this from the gear icon, but it is a way to create a custom theme, and it's so easy. And I'm going to show you some ways to do that. You can also deploy your themes across the brand center. One thing I did want to make note of is that you can also create font packages. However, the fonts have to first be added to the brand center, so just be aware of that. But with site branding, we can play with themes, header layouts, navigation, and some different footer options. So when you go to that gear and you're going to click on Site Branding New, you can then create a new theme. You can select the colors. You can take advantage of, like, if Adam, the designer, had provided you with a style guide, you can utilize that to enter in the hex numbers and get it completely branded for your organization. Or maybe you're doing a new branding initiative and you want to just take a look at what it would look like in a SharePoint site. Once you enter in all of the specifications, you're going to name your theme and then you save it. And now it's available in site branding. You also have the ability to copy from a different site. So it could not be more user friendly. And then you can go and apply it to your site. So a few things I wanted to make note of in here. When you go to change the look, you'll then see your new site theme listed. They can be done by the site owner. So somebody like me who doesn't always have global access to the organizations that I'm working with, I now have the ability to do that. It will not override the settings for a site that's associated to a hub, however. So you need to be aware of that. And then last thing is that global administrators are the ones who can set it all up in the brand center and then create themes that can be utilized across the entire tenant. But there have definitely been cases for my clients over the past years where we wanted to apply a theme and it was just kind of a nightmare and a lot of steps to have IT do it. So I think this is such a fun way to be able to do that and also play with some different branding colors that you would receive from your stylist, digital stylist. Header layouts. So playing with different layout options. As Adam had mentioned, right, real estate is precious on a homepage. So being aware of that. It used to only have a couple different options for the layout, and they've been rolling out new ones, as well as the ability to do some background colors and have your custom logos applied. So play around with those and take advantage of some of those tips that he provided. When it comes to page editing, they're also rolling out some new features in the toolbox, as well as some banner styles and section styles. So I'm going to talk through some of those. When you go to edit a page, you'll see the toolbox pop out in the display pane, and now you have some different options. What I've always loved about anything within Microsoft 365, when you hover over it, it'll tell you exactly what it is, whatever that icon is and what it's going to do. So you can expand and collapse that toolbox. There is also the edit properties. You can use design ideas, which I'm going to talk about in a second here. And then also taking advantage of that accessibility checker. So they're really trying to provide you with easy ways to make changes to your page and make them more engaging for the user instead of just a bunch of text heavy stuff like we used to see in old versions of SharePoint. Design Ideas is really cool. So I'm sure you've seen it in PowerPoint and some of the other tools, but the fact that it's now going to be available in SharePoint, and I would imagine only more and more will come with this. Right now, Design Ideas can only be applied if you are matching some of this criteria. So I have it listed here. You have to have one banner web part, 1, 2, or 3 text web parts, or 1, 2, or 3 text and image web parts. But as you can see in the image that's here, what it'll do is it'll pop out some different ideas for you, some images you can utilize. And so if you are a person who is maybe not as creative as someone like Adam, but you want to play around with some page editing, it's a great way to do that and utilize some of these new tools. Banner styles as well. So when you're creating new pages, that top banner piece, there is some additional styles available to you as well. And they've also rolled it out as a web part, which is really fun. So you can choose between a banner or a full width section. And they're like the overlay is cool, fade is cool. So again, depending on what you're trying to do, and this can be utilized on the other page types as well. So it's really slick and easy. And I love that they are encouraging so much more use of different graphic styles. For section styles, the flexible section was released in February. We did not have it on our tenant to show you some of our examples, but I did get this from the Microsoft Community Hub, so you can at least take a look at it. It utilizes this two-dimensional grid with flexible sections, so you can drag and drop. So a lot of times what will happen when you're using like the SharePoint lookbook or something like that, or even if you're using a designer, there are limitations with what we can do inside of SharePoint. And so I think this is going to be really cool with regards to making some of these web parts really pop and look next level from what we've seen in the past. So we have overlapping, we can preview it on a mobile device, adding background images. And then I love the alignment cues. That is so helpful so that you can kind of see where it's going to line up on the page. Some of the new web parts, I already mentioned the banner web part, but also this editorial card I thought was a cool one to point out. So again, when you add the web part, you're going to get that toolbox with a bunch of information on ways that you can play with it and make some changes to the properties of that web part and really make these items pop. So I wanted to just throw out some, these are not necessarily new web parts, but just different ones that can take advantage of some of those design elements in a couple of the first two design tips that Adam listed. But for example, one of our clients is a global organization, and they felt that some of their locations were not being represented on the intranet. So using the location and time zones web part to put in all of the different locations where you have employees so that they, you can, number one, know what time zone they're in, so if they're available, but then also just seeing how far-reaching the organization is. I also like the idea of using that countdown clock. So if there is a launch happening for your organization, that's a really big deal, or maybe like a annual company event or something like that, where you want to highlight that and get people excited. I like that opportunity. And then also pulling in the group calendar. So perhaps you're using a SharePoint site, maybe there's a rollout happening and all of the collaboration is maybe happening inside of Teams, but you want to show big milestones on a SharePoint site where other users can come and take a look and see what's going on with the project. You can use some of those, some of that web part functionality as well. So just a few that I wanted to point out that can again add interest to your site. Copilot. So we are obviously seeing AI everywhere in Copilot. Some of the really interesting pieces that I think will be really fun to play with is the creation of pages. You can either start with templates and prompts, or you can do a completely open prompt to do that. And then inside of the text box web part, you can also take advantage of Copilot. So it can help you to rewrite and refine as well as use design ideas. So if we're taking a look at that inside of SharePoint, you do have to have a Microsoft 365 Copilot license to do that. But then inside of that rich text editor, maybe you're not somebody that's great at writing copy, or maybe someone provided something that's just a little too wordy and you want to knock it down and make it into bullet points or something like that. You can use Copilot to help you do that really efficiently. And I have included a link in here from Microsoft support that talks through a lot more detail of how to do that. But the idea of creating new pages with templates or that open prompt, that's going to be a fun one to watch. So in summary, so we covered a lot here very quickly. We have site branding, themes, customizing themes, taking advantage of the toolbox. I know that Sarah also talked about the roadmap. So I follow that roadmap a lot. If you're curious about what's in development or what's rolling out and what has been launched, but watch this, there are always new web parts being added. And are there any questions with regards to everything I just covered? All right, so then if you want to post any questions in the chat, we're happy to answer those. But if you are looking for some further information, you can scan that QR code or send us an email, and we're happy to help and would love to chat. All right, I will throw it back over to Michelle.
Awesome. This is a great session. I don't know how, but I've gotten myself kicked out of chat because I was on my mobile for a second. Are there any questions that you can see in the chat?
Let's see.
Yeah, I don't see any.
Okay.
But hello to some of our other people. Hey, Alexis and team.
Awesome. Well, thank you for
Shout out
this.
to my friends at Cargill. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yep. All right. Thank you so much. That was a great presentation.